And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network dedicated to covering IU women's basketball. Today is our 151st episode recorded on the evening of Thursday, February 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Kathy Amos, and I am flying solo today. So we will be discussing, if you're in the chat with me, today your Indiana Hoosiers fantastic win against the number 8 ranked Ohio State Buckeyes, 61-71. That brings their record to 17-9 overall and 9-6 in the conference. But we will start our show as we do every show, and that's with Hoosier Proud banner moment. And for me, the banner moment came at 1:45 in the fourth quarter when Yarden Garzone tied for third and now 3-point field goals made when she hit her 200th three on the season. And I'm sure that I'll be mentioning her a few times throughout this episode because I thought Yarden just played fantastic with a lot of emotion that we can talk about as the game went on, and a lot of poise as well, doing a lot of things on both ends of the court. So for me, in a game that was really from tip to buzzer time, it was hard to pick a banner moment until Yarden hit that three-pointer. But congratulations to Yarden on 200 career three-pointers made. Our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, the presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. So you're bound to find anything for you or anyone in your life that loves great collegiate gear. And not only do you get great quality apparel, but you are supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. So go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your first order. Again, that promo code is HOME23 for 15% off, and the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right. Well, normally this would be where we'd give you some news headlines. There wasn't anything really new of note since our last podcast. And then we would normally jump into Jeff Marlow's musings, but Jeff had a conflict coming up tonight. He has another game that he is coaching right now for his high school boys. So he's an assistant coach this year. So we are going to jump directly into pivotal plays. And, for me, I thought this game was in general, we'll talk about the theme here for me. I thought from the time that the ball tipped until the end of the game, I thought our team came out and played with a really good poise and a good game plan. So I thought that the game plan was really apparent to me, which was A, attack the Ohio State zone, and they did, and B, really try to expose the Ohio State's defense, which is, really known from not just their half or their full court press, but their half court defense as well. And we really exploited that with the pick and roll tonight and finding people underneath the basket. And, that was apparent in the first quarter when we break the press 4 times in a row and we scored our first 8 points all in the paint. The other end of the ball, at their end of the court was defense, right? So we moved to zone defense at around 7.5 minutes left in that first quarter. And Ohio State ended up shooting over it. But for the most part, I thought the zone defense really worked well for us. The other thing that I wrote down for the first quarter is I thought Sydney just came out with her hair on fire. In fact, I thought that whole first half, that she really came out and was ready to go. And the team was really dialed in. We shot 9 of 10 for our first field goals. And all that 9 of 10, we had 8 assists on them. So if anytime you're going to get almost a 1-to-1 ratio on shots made to assists, I think it's just really fantastic. You're not going to ask for much better than that. And so that kind of rounded out some of the first quarters. Now we moved into the second quarters. And so that first quarter again was just a thing of beauty, right? We outscored them 26-17. Now everyone keep in mind, Ohio State is a team that holds their opponents to only 61 points per game. And in one quarter, we scored 26 points, and we outscored them by 9 points in that quarter. Now we came out in the second quarter, and we did have some turnovers to kind of start that quarter. We had a bad pass and then a shot clock violation, and then yet another third turnover that led to an Ohio State layup, and that let them go on a 9-0 run to tie it up 26-26. That's okay, because that's the last time they really tied it up and came really within whole close at all. But it did force us to timeout. And right after that timeout, we had Chloe came in and hit a 3-pointer to put us back up. And that was the last time we would relinquish the lead. Although, we did have another turnover trying to pass it cross court. So we had 4 turnovers in that second quarter within a span of about 5 or 6 minutes. One thing I wanted to point out here in the second quarter is that I thought it was a nice thing to see that Jules here got some run in this game. Jules Lamandola. Now, she didn't play a whole lot in terms of minutes. She had 7 minutes, but she was the one that had that cross court turnover pass, where normally what we had seen was she would get benched right away, but she didn't. In fact, right after that, she ended up getting a nice cut to the basket where the team found her for 2 points. And then she got a 3-pointer, giving us some really nice minutes after that turnover. So, in her 7 minutes, she had 5 points in those 7 minutes, a rebound and an assist. So again, I know Jeff and I in particular together have been kind of harping on it, but I still wish we would see more time from Jules. It was nice to see that she didn't get benched right away after that cross court pass. So I thought that in that second quarter was just fantastic. So again, we started out the beginning of the quarter with some turnovers and some sloppy play, and then really turned it around in that last 7+ minutes. And we went on a 14-2 run to get that lead back up to 12 points, 28-40 to go into halftime. At that point, Ohio State was really playing frazzled, and what a good turnaround from that sloppy start. So those are some of the things that I saw in the first half. Now, we came out in the third quarter, and I know we've historically had some issues coming out in the third quarter. So I had some flashbacks before we started here, thinking about last year when we were at Ohio State. And, we were playing them really tough last year up until that third quarter, when Ohio State came up and ratcheted up their defense and really started turning us over in that third quarter. And we just kind of fell apart in that game and couldn't get it back. This year was different. We came back out and again, just started hitting that pick and roll and just picking apart that Ohio State half-court defense. And in my opinion, I don't think the press really bothered us at all until about the last maybe 2 minutes of the game in the fourth quarter that we'll get to. But I thought we really hit the pick and roll and just really exploited that. And in fact, we went and hit 3 of 3 to begin that quarter, forcing another Ohio State timeout with around 6:12 to go. And we were up now 47-33. One of the other kind of pivotal plays, I'm not sure if I'll call it, but one of my favorite moments in the game, if you didn't catch it, Yarden played really great defense on Cody McMahon, I thought, most of the night. And at one point in that third quarter, she was really getting into the game and emotional, and she was just clapping in McMahon's face when she was on defense. So I thought it was just it was fun to see Yarden get so emotional and so excited. And again, I'm sure we'll talk about her more here as the show progresses. But that was one moment from Yarden that I really loved. The other thing in the third quarter was just at the end of the play. There was a lot of chaotic play out the end. There was a bad pass by Yarden that Lexi saved barely from going timeout or from going out of bounds, and Coach Morin called a timeout. That was around 30 seconds or so to go, maybe not quite that much. But the team came back out of that and executed again, and ended with Shea Chesky hitting a 3-pointer with about 2 seconds to go to put us up 57-39 at the end of that quarter. So now we're 3 quarters into the game, and we've outscored the number 8 team in the country in every single quarter that we've had so far. So again, yeah, we're really sharing the sugar, Joe. That's right. I just again from beginning into the end, and we'll really get into it when you get into the numbers. I think it was just fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit about the fourth quarter, and then we'll go ahead and get into those numbers. So, I think fouling, we can again debate a lot on some of these fouls I thought were interesting, but that fourth quarter really ratcheted up really on both sides both teams. Chloe Moore McNeil got her fourth personal at 9:45. Shea Chesky got hers at 5:46. Chloe ended up fouling out with about 2 minutes to go. We had a foul and a really bad live turnover there late in the game, and letting Ohio State get back into it 60-48 after we had built up an 18-point lead. But Ohio State did nothing to help themselves. Coach McGuff got teed up by coming out onto the floor and really yelling at some of the officials. In fact, I thought that should have been his second technical, but it was at least one of them that he got called. Shea Chesky went down and made him both. And then Cody McMahon had just a flagrant foul on Yarden. Yarden had her own flagrant foul as well. So it was really getting pretty chippy here in that fourth quarter. And I think that last couple of minutes, we were really playing to hang on, if you will. Like Ohio State was really coming out and trying their best to get back into it. They did cut it down to some single digits, but they just couldn't get past that. I think around 8 points was as close as they got. And like I mentioned, we hung on to win that game by 10 points. So those were some of the highlights that I had from when I was watching the game. But let's talk some of the numbers, because I think these are going to be some fun ones to talk about as well. So yes, a couple of people have mentioned it in the chat already tonight, and I'm going to start here. And that's 21 assists on 25 made field goals. Again, I started out by saying we went 8 assists on 9 made field goals. Well, we didn't quit there. We really were finding each other and sharing the sugar, as Coach says, all the time. And that entire night, it was just a lot of fun to see. 21 on 25 made field goals. Again, I don't think you can really ask for anything better from your team on that. Shooting too, man, we were shooting the lights out. Like I mentioned, 9 of 10 to start, 90% in case you need help with the math there. But we ended the game shooting 54% for field goals, which again, a lot of those came in the paint, 32 points in the paint for us. A lot of it was from breaking the press, as well as breaking down their half court defense in the pick and roll. But it wasn't just the inside game that we had going tonight as well. I mean, we were hitting our 3-pointers too. We are 9 of 17. That's 53% from 3-point land that we had going on offense. So, the interesting thing is that Jeff and I were really concerned about turnovers in this game, and rightfully so. Ohio State really turns their opponents over, and they did the same to us tonight. We ended up with 21 turnovers that led to 20 points off of those for Ohio State, and only forced 10 turnovers on the opposite side of it. However, that didn't come up to bite us, again, because of that assist, that willingness to find each other, to find the open person, and the fact that we just made those shots tonight. The other really fun number that I can't get past, I was looking at this at halftime and I had to double check my notes. We were out rebounding Ohio State 15-9 at the half, and we ended up out rebounding them 31-18. Now, I understand that Ohio State, again, if you listen to our pregame preview of this, they were actually being out rebounded by their opponents on an average around 2 rebounds per game this year. However, the fact that we way more than out rebounded them by 2, 31-18 was the final margin. Now, it didn't lead to any second chance points, which is interesting to me, but it also didn't lead to hardly any second chance points for Ohio State. So we held them to 42% field goal percentage, 33% from 3, and we didn't allow them to get hardly any offensive rebounds. They ended up with 2. They did score off of both of those, but again, just 31-18. I think that warrants a repeating here as well. So the only blemish I see as I start going through the numbers are those turnovers. Again, 21 turnovers. We really shot our way out of this, but at the end of the day, I gotta say kudos and hats off to the coaching staff and to the team together. This was absolutely a from top to bottom game and team win, where you had a game plan that was pretty obvious from the players, or from the coaches, right? The coaches clearly scouted what they wanted to do against this press on Ohio State, and they wanted to do on their half-court defense. And absolutely tip of the cap to our players for executing that, getting those open shots and making them when they had it. And on top of it, we played some tough nosed defense, you guys. Like I haven't talked enough about the defense, but 61 points. Prior to this game, I believe what I heard was it was around 54 or 52 was Ohio State's lowest scoring game, and that came against UCLA. So we held them to some of their lowest scoring output. Again, if you hadn't heard our pregame show when we talked about it after the Purdue game, Ohio State was averaging just under 80 points per game on the year. 80 points per game, and we held them to 61 points. So this all around, the only thing that I have to complain about here is the turnovers. But when you go and you beat the number 8 team in the country, you shoot 54% from the field. You have 21 assists on 25 made turnovers. You have some fouling problems, right? We didn't talk too much about that other than Chloe fouling out. Yarden ended up with 4 as well. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think all of us will agree that absolutely was something that I will take. 21 turnovers if we can put up numbers like the rest of that box score and come out of there with a win. So after that, we are going to go ahead and move into some of our awards here. So our game ball comes up first. So again, if you're watching on YouTube or after the fact on YouTube, you can see at the bottom of the screen our ticker with the number of game balls for each player this year. So Sydney Parrish leads the way with 6. Yarden Garzone with 5, Shay Chesky, Chloe Moore McNeil with 4, Lily Meister with 3, and Caroline Striplin with 3. Now, we ended up with 4 players, you guys, with double digits. So we had Shay Chesky with 16, Caroline Striplin with 11, Yarden Garzone with 16, and Sydney Parrish with 16. At first, when I was thinking about this before the game was over, I was leaning towards Sydney Parrish, mainly because of her first half play. So 13 of her 16 points came in that first half. And in the second half, Yarden really ratcheted it up. I think she had 6 points at halftime, and she ended up with 16. Same with Shay Chesky with around 5 or 6 points first half and 16. But this one ended up being pretty easy as the second half really wore on, because Yarden just made her presence and how valuable she is to the team felt. She had 16 points, 11 rebounds. That she did those 16 on 3 of 6 shooting, as I mentioned, from 3-point land. 5 of 9 from the field. She hit all 3 of her free throws, 11 rebounds. She also had 6 assists and only 2 turnovers of our 21 turnovers. So for me, I'm going to give my game ball to Yarden Garzone because I just thought she had the all-around game, and I didn't even start mentioning that yet, her defense. And again, I thought emotionally, this was some of the most emotional I've seen Yardini play with us. And again, how can you not give it to somebody who just made her 200th three-pointer? So Yarden Garzone, and I see some people in the chat are agreeing with me. So Yarden Garzone will get our game ball for this game. Now, I think the harder one becomes the Grace Berger hardest worker. So real quick to recap, Chloe Moore McNeil, Sydney Parrish, and Yarden Garzone all have 5. Caroline Striplin has 3. Shay Chesky has 3. Lily Meister has 2, and then Jules and Hannah Sandvik each have 1. I think it's a little harder here when you start getting into the hardest worker, because quite honestly, I thought everybody that played tonight was working really hard. I'll mention maybe a couple of people real quick I haven't really talked about. One, again, Lily Meister is still just really struggling. This, again, was not a great game for her. She ended up playing only 8 minutes, 1 shot that she ended up missing. Hannah Sandvik came out and only played 3 minutes. Just wasn't, I think, a game for her. I think the pace was probably just a little bit too much. And I talked on Jules. You did have Lexi come in off the bench, and she had 13 points, although she had no points in that. 13 minutes, no points in that. She contributed 2 rebounds, but she had 3 turnovers in that amount of time. I thought Caroline Striplin ended up having a really nice game as well. I thought she was really the beneficiary of the people finding her on those pick and rolls. Again, just well executed with the pick and rolls. And then you have Shay Chesky, who had 16 points. She also had 4 turnovers, but she also contributed 2 steals and a couple of assists as well. At the end of the day, though, I'm going to go ahead with Sydney Parrish. So Sydney Parrish, like I mentioned, had 16 points as well. She also contributed 6 rebounds and 4 assists on the night and a steal. I thought in that first half in particular, Sydney just really set the tone from the very beginning of that tip-off and helped us build that lead going into halftime. So I'm going to go ahead, and I'm looking at the chat here. So yes, we have a couple votes for Sydney. We have one for Sydney O'Shea, one for Sydney as well. So we're going to give that Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award to Sydney Parrish here tonight. So that will put her in the lead now for the year and give her her 6th greatest hardest worker. So that moves us into numbers watch, which I've already really kind of covered it, which was the only one we're really watching now is Yarden's 3-pointers made. Again, she is now tied for 3rd place of all time in program history with exactly 200. So congratulations to Yarden. So again, just to kind of recap the game for what I thought again, from time that this ball was tipped until the end of the play, the players were out there hustling, they were executing, they were making their shots, and they did exactly what we had to have from the beginning until the end. Luckily, we had a couple of lulls that we got through at the beginning of the second quarter, as an example. But we really pulled this one out in just a fantastic win that most likely, if it doesn't, I would be shocked. And should have sealed our bid for another NCAA tournament under Coach Morin. So congratulations to everyone here tonight, from the coaching staff to everybody, even the bench players that didn't get in. I think everyone contributed to this win. Probably should remind ourselves that even if we don't see them on the court, right, our bench does have to play a pivotal role in this. And that was in practice when they're also helping us with the scout on this. So just congratulations to the team on this. But we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about our upcoming schedule. So yet another important game is coming up. This time we are going on the road. We'll be playing Michigan State. That game is Sunday, February 23rd. It will tip at 2 Eastern, 1 Central, and will be on Big Ten Network, not Big Ten Plus. So for those of you who don't have Big Ten Plus, this will be your chance to be able to catch them on Big Ten Network. In terms of history, Michigan State leads the history all time, 48-33. Our last meeting, we won that up at Michigan State, 94-91. It was a really good, close game. Robin Freilich is the coach of Michigan State. This is her 2nd season with Michigan State. Prior to that, she spent 5 seasons at Bowling Green, where she was 88-73, and she had 3 postseason appearances with Bowling Green there. Last year, Michigan State also made the NCAA tournament, and it was 22-9. So this was, I believe, if I read correctly, the first time a Michigan State first year head coach took her team to the NCAA tournament. In terms of players, the players that you want to look out for are Julia Aralt. Julia leads the team in both shooting and in rebounding. So scoring, she averages 15 points per game. She has 7.5 rebounds per game. She also contributes 1.5 blocks per game, which is 6th in the Big Ten. And she leads the team in all 3, actually, of those categories. The next player you really want to watch is Grace Van Sluten. So Grace is averaging just under 15 points per game, also 6.9 rebounds per game, and 1.2 blocks per game, which is 9th in the Big Ten. So between your 2 players that I just mentioned, you have 2 that are both averaging right around 15 points, 7 rebounds, and over a block a game in the top 10 in the Big Ten. So those are for sure the 2 that you really are going to have to key on. And then followed closely by Theron Halleck. She is averaging 13.8 points per game. And she is leading the team with assists at 3 assists per game and 1.8 steals per game, which is 9th in the Big Ten. In terms of team statistics, Michigan State is 19-6 overall. They are 9-5 in the conference. They are scoring at a rate of 81 points per game. So we are already talking about Ohio's proficiency of scoring tonight. We have 80 for 79.7 for Ohio State. Now you're looking at a team that's scoring 81 points per game. That is 10th in the nation and 2nd in the Big Ten. Defensively, they are also strong like Ohio State in terms of defense. They are only allowing opponents to score 62 points per game, which is 107th in the nation and 7th in the Big Ten. They shoot at a 45.3% field goal percentage, which is 40th in the nation and 7th in the Big Ten, which equates to a 50.9 effective field goal percentage. In terms of three-point shooting, 34.4% from three, which is 62%, are sixth in the Big Ten. Now, they don't shoot a lot of three-pointers. They're 226 in three-point rate. So they don't shoot a lot. They're not huge in terms of a large three-point percentage. So that might be another thing that might be interesting to see if we play another zone to try to kind of push them out like we did Ohio State tonight. They do have a slight edge in rebounding over their opponents at 2.4. And again, similar to what we talked about with Ohio State, what you really need to watch for Michigan State is their defense. They don't necessarily be known for their full court press, but they have been known to press you, and they average almost 8 turnover margin per game. So this is, again, we escaped tonight, if you want to call it escaping. I thought we were in the driver's seat this whole game. So we were able to win this game despite our 21 turnovers. So we were going to have to try to get that cleaned up, especially being on the road at Michigan State. So those are some of my keys to the game. Again, we capitalized on it tonight, but we just can't afford to count on being able to out-rebound every team, which we are historically not known for, but we did Ohio State tonight. But we're probably not going to be quite as efficient rebounding against Michigan State. So we're going to have to make sure we cut down on those turnovers. 21 turnovers going on the road against this Michigan State defense is probably a recipe that's not going to equate into a win on the road. So I think that we can absolutely win this game. This is a winnable game, but Michigan State has been playing some really good ball, and they're going to be coming, as I get around to talking about the Big Ten and what's happened, they're going to be coming back off of their West Coast swing where they just dropped 2 in a row to those LA teams as well. So they're going to be chomping at the bit, coming back home and ready to kind of right their ship as well as we get into, we have, I think, 3 games left in the season. So let's go ahead and talk about what's going on around the Big Ten and what has happened since our game against Purdue. So we had that early tip time against Purdue on Sunday that we ended up winning. There were 3 other games of note that day to talk about. So Oregon went to Minnesota and won that game 76-70. Nebraska went on the road to Illinois, where Illinois hung on at home 68-77. And then, as I mentioned, Michigan State was on the road. They started with UCLA, who at the time was ranked number 1 in the country, and they lost to UCLA by only 6 points, 69-75. On Monday, we had Iowa go to Ohio State and take them to overtime. Iowa went on an 11-2 run in the fourth quarter to tie it up in the fourth quarter to take it to overtime. Ohio State ended up hanging on and winning that game 78-86. And then you had Michigan on Monday go up into Maryland. Maryland won that game 77-85. Maryland is currently ranked 17th. And then on Wednesday, you also had Michigan State finishing out their LA tour, where they went next to USC and lost that game 75-83. That score's a little closer than if you had watched the game. I think USC was in well control of that, especially in the first half. But then Michigan State came back and made a bit of a run there in the fourth quarter. A couple upcoming games to keep an eye on. You have on Thursday, you have number 25 Illinois going over to number 3 UCLA. UCLA dropped after they lost to USC. On Sunday, UCLA will then follow that up by traveling to Iowa. So a quick turnaround from Thursday to Sunday for UCLA. They're traveling all the way to Iowa City. Iowa's been playing a lot better ball. I know they lost to Ohio State, but again, they did take them to overtime. So I would keep an eye on the Hawkeyes as well as we come into the downstretch here as we go. And then lastly, the last game is number 25 Illinois is going to be out in LA playing on number 4 USC on Sunday. So those are our updated games that we've had since our last podcast, as well as the ones coming up. So we will now just quickly talk about the Big Ten standings. I'm going to try to pull them up here as I'm talking, which may be a point of interest here, if I could figure this out. Okay, so now we have number 1 USC is after they beat UCLA is in number 1. They're 14-1. UCLA is number 2 at 12-1. Ohio State is still in third place, but they are now tied with Illinois at 11-4. You have Maryland at number 5 at 10-5. You have then a three-way tie in for sixth place between Michigan, Michigan State, and Indiana. At all of us now at 9-6. So again, as I mentioned, we are going up to Michigan State here this weekend, and the fact that we are now tied for sixth place and really just trying to move our way up into trying to solidify, that bye in the Big Ten tournament, as well as a good seeding in the NCAA. Every game has become pretty critical for all of those standings. So keep an eye on that game as we get into it. And then, but I'm going to go ahead and give you my final thoughts, and I'll wrap it up for tonight. I'm sure you're tired of listening to me talk at this point, all solo. So my final thoughts for the game again, I just thought the game plan was just beautifully put together and beautifully executed. Again, the one blemish is the 21 turnovers, which again, we will take if that means a win against number 8 Ohio State, and really helping with not just our rankings, standings in the Big Ten, but that will help our net rankings. It will help how we look to the NCAA committee. All of this was by far our best win of the year. And I thought that the team played really, really well. So I'm just really hats off to the team and excited to have watched it. It was a lot of fun watching that and then coming and talking to you guys with it tonight as it was. So I am going to go ahead and play a little Bob Thompson music here, wrap us up, and we will call it a night. All right, then. So we are going to go ahead and talk about what is coming up next. So a couple of people, thanks, Eagle Eye. I appreciate your support, and Quang, I appreciate you. I have a couple of people are worried about Jeff getting long-winded. Well, you'll get your chance to find out, because I am unfortunately not available on Sunday after the Michigan State game, and we felt it was too important of a game not to have a live post game. So Jeff is going to be doing that show solo on Sunday, February 22nd. To recap the Michigan State game. So congratulations to all of you for getting a couple solo doing the work podcast. So thanks for keeping me company here in the chat tonight. Really appreciate it. And if you do want to see us do the show live and be part of our live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be part of our private community as well. You can find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of Riggs Design for designing our logos, and a big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. But most of all, thank you all for listening. If they're live or after the fact, we appreciate every single one of you. And Jeff will be back to talk IU hoops with you again soon. But until then, keep your elbows in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers. All right. Well, good night, everybody. Thanks for being with me. Appreciate it. Have a happy weekend, whatever you end up doing. And I'll catch you probably pretty soon. Take care.